Yo guys, what's going on? It's Shoutout here, and today I'm going to show you how to pass really high as a Fire Mage in Phase 2. Similar to my Phase 1 guide, this will be in depth. We'll have all the information and everything you need to know to do the highest DPS in the raid. Fire Mage is looking really good right now as the top DPS in the world, and if you follow this guide, you will pass high. It's as simple as that. As usual, there's timestamps in the description. So yeah, let's get into it. So for the talents, we want 5 out of 5 improved Fireball, 5 out of 5 Ignite, 2 out of 2 Burning Soul, 1 in Pyroblast, 2 out of 2 Incinerate, 3 out of 3 improved Scorch, 3 out of 3 Master of Elements, 3 out of 3 Critical Mass. Then from here you've got two options. You can either take 1 out of 2 in Flamethrowing, or you can take 1 out of 1 in Blast Wave. Blast Wave is a really fun ability. It has some use in the first boss. Other than that, it's good for the trash, but I like to take Flamethrowing for the final boss. 5 out of 5 Firepower, and 1 out of 1 Combustion. Combustion is really strong, so we take this regardless of our hit rating. We don't take Elemental Precision, because we want to use Combustion. For the runes, Burnout on the chest, Living Flame on the legs, Living Bomb on the hands, Hot Streak on the waist, Spell Power on the feet. All of these runes are hard locked in, so we don't change them at all. To recap, the only change we make on the fire tree is we can have Blast Wave instead of Flamethrowing if we want to. Now we're going to look at the pre-BiS gear. For the head, we want the White Mane's head, which drops in Scarlet Monastery. For the neck, we want the Ghost Shard's Talisman. This also drops in Scarlet Monastery in the graveyard. You can also use the Jagged Bone Necklace if you have that. I prefer to take this one because of the stamina. For the shoulder, we use the Mantle of Doan, 8 intellect and 10 fire spell damage. For the cloak, we're using the Blood's Rot Cloak. This comes in the STV PvP event. It's very easy to farm. There's no reason why you shouldn't do it. Even if you don't like PvP, you can join a group, or you can just grind things like tigers or trolls and get blood that way. If you want to look at what the event's like and get any strategies, I have done a few live streams which you can find in the live section. The chest, we're using the Robes of the Magi. It's got a huge 22 spell damage and 6 intellect, but I'm aware it's a very rare drop. I was lucky that it dropped when I was leveling up, but it'll be very expensive to buy. So if you can't afford it or can't get it, just make the Dreamweave vest. For the wrists, we're using the Warsong Gulch braces. If you don't have those, just use the Phoenix bindings from Phase 1. Now, for the weapon, I've put Hypnotic Blade partnered with the Celestial Orb. You should have the Celestial Orb by now. Know how good this orb is. I've told you a million times, you'll want to have the orb, not the staff. Make sure you have this orb if you don't already. We've also got the Hypnotic Blade, which we're going to upgrade into the Narpas sword. But so far I haven't found the scroll for this, so it's a lot more rare than I thought. If you do, however, have the Rod of the Ancient Sleepwalker from Phase 1, then use this staff. You can swap the Celestial Orb in for the final boss if you want to get some more mana. For the gloves, we're using the Dreamweave gloves. These are the BiS. We can also make them if you're a tailor, or you can buy them off the auction house. For the belt, it's the Death Mage Sash. This drops in RFD, a very good belt, a nice amount of intellect, and 7 spell damage. For the legs, it's the red Mageweave pants, very cheap to get, or you can make them yourself, 12 intellect and 14 spell damage. For the boots, we're using the epic Spider Silk boots from Phase 1. They've got 1% crit, 7 spell damage, and a nice amount of stamina, intellect and spirit. The main reason we want these is for the 1% hit. If for some reason you can't get them or can't afford them or whatever, you can use the South Sea Mojo boots. This has more spell damage, but it doesn't have the hit rating. For the ring, we're using the Blood Seal from the PvP event in STV. As I said, I've done a live stream on it before. You can go on that and watch the video to learn some tactics. For the other ring, we're using the Advisor's Ring from Warsong Gulch vendor. Level 38 version has 9 spell damage, 5 stamina and 3 mana per 5 seconds. For the trinkets, we're using the Rune of Perfection, make sure it's the level 40 version, and the Void Pearl. If you don't have the Void Pearl, just run BFD now and get it. For the wand, we're using the Rage Fire wand, or we've got the Necrotic wand. The Necrotic wand is 7 spell damage, drops in the Scarlet Monastery. But if you've done the quest and you want to get this one, you can. I have advised before that you get the Arcane wand, but now we know the wand in Gnomer is arcane damage, and wands aren't that great now. We can use the Ragefire wand. That's it for the pre-BiS gear. Now we will look at the BiS gear. Now for the BiS gear at level 40, we will use the Tailoring Head. You'll definitely want to be a tailor. If you want to be competitive, you need this helm. It's got a nice amount of stamina, it's got a nice amount of intellect, 22 spell damage, 4 mana per 5 seconds, and the on use is very good. It reduces the mana cost of all spells by 50% and increases damage by 50 for 12 seconds. We are going to partner this up with combustion wherever we can. For the neck, it's the Piston Pindit. This is very good. It's in the Engineering Notes quest from the final boss. It's a guaranteed drop every raid. If you get it, that's very good. For the shoulder, it's the Synthetic Mantle. 9 intellect, 8 stamina and 12 spell power. A very nice shoulder. For the cloak, we still have the Bloodrot Cloak. For the chest, we're using the Irradiated Robe chest. This set is very strong and sims the highest DPS, but you do lose stamina. So 1, you can't use it in PvP, and 2, you need to be extra careful with mechanics in the raid. For the wrist, we're using the Warsong Gulch wrists. Again, if you don't have them, just use the Phoenix Bindings, but you should farm them at some point anyway. For the main weapon, we've got the Glimmering Gizmo Blade. This is a very good dagger. Got 19 spell damage, 7 stamina, 4 intellect. We'll partner this up with the Celestial Orb for a nice 32 spell damage. For the gloves, we've got the Dreamweave gloves. The belt, we've got the Volatile Concussion belt. This is very good belt. It's got spell damage and it's got hit rating. If you're an engineer, you can also use the Engineer belt. The on-use ability is pretty good, but they've changed it from 10% crit to 3% crit, so engineering isn't the best anymore. I have this one. For the trousers, we're using the Irradiated Trousers set. Same with the boots. For this set, you lose a lot of stamina, so just be careful in PvP and avoiding mechanics. Again, the ring, we're using the Blood Moon ring. The other ring is the Epic ring from the raid. This should drop every single time, one version of this, so roll on it whenever you can. The trinket from the raid is also very good, 6 intellect, 12 spell damage and 10 fire resistance. You can also channel health into mana on a 30-minute cooldown. I haven't seen it drop yet, but it's very good. We've also got the Void Pearl from Phase 1. Again, run BFD if you don't have it already. For the wand, we've got the 14 fire damage wand. Now this is very expensive to buy. People are going to put it on the auction house for a stupid price. If you can't get hold of it, just use the Ragefire wand or the wand from in the raid. That's it for the BiS gear. If you've got this far, I just want to say thank you for watching. I also want to shout out to my newest member, Scotty. Welcome to the team. And if you do appreciate this guide and like what I'm doing, please consider becoming a member. I'll put member videos in there and I'll help you to pass really high, and you'll also be supporting me, which helps a lot. Now just quickly to talk about the stat priority. You'll want to have spell power, but you'll want to balance it out with intellect. These are the most 2 important ones. Don't go too heavy into spell power and run out of mana, but don't go too heavy into intellect. Every piece of item should have a certain amount of spell power and intellect, or if you get spell power in one item, you can get intellect in another. But intellect will be useful, so don't just go out full out on fire damage gear because you'll just run out of mana. Try and balance it as best as you can. Have stamina or spirit. as a second stat. Stamina is now slightly more important because of our set bonus. It reduces the stamina. So yeah, just quickly going to go over enchants as well. So the enchants I use are +3 all resistances on cloak. Doesn't seem that much, but I did resist the chain lightning in the raid, and my nature resistance is 3, so that's pretty insane. The robes, I have +2 all stats. The bracer, it's +5 intellect. And then for the boots, we have +5 stamina. And for the weapon, I'm going with dismantle. Intellect is good, but dismantle does proc and it provides maybe 1% of the damage. It seems very small, but it's better than the intellect. You can also add armor onto the other pieces, but I haven't bothered to do that, to be honest. Okay, for buffs and consumables, we are going to need the Sage's Dark Fortune World buff, which is from the Darkmoon Fair. This gives us 10% increased damage. And then we've got the Spark of Inspiration, which is the world buff from Gnomer. It drops in Orgrimmar and it increases the critical chance of our spells by 4% and increases spell damage and healing by 42. We'll also want the Lesser Wizard Oil, which we put on our weapon and increases spell damage by 16. We want the Sage Fish Delight, which gives us 6 mana per 5 seconds, is our food buff. We want the Elixir of Firepower, which increases spell fire damage by up to 10 for 30 minutes. We want the Lesser Arcane Elixir. This increases spell damage by 14 for 30 minutes. We want the Scroll of Arcane Accuracy, which increases our hit chance by 1%. We'll also want the Scroll of Arcane Recovery, which gives us 5 mana per 5 seconds. We'll want Nature Protection Potions. These can be pre-potted for most of the bosses which have nature damage. We want the Scroll of Spirit Free, which gives us 11 spirit for 30 minutes. The Arcane Protection Frost, we can use this instead of the Arcane Recovery for the final boss if you don't have any of the recovery. We want Greater Mana Potions, 3 Action Potions for the last boss, and if you're enchanting, you'll also use this Enchanted Sigil Innovation, which has now been fixed so it does stack with the elixir. So that gives us 20 spell damage for 30 minutes and then you can reapply it. So it's a really good buff, but obviously if you die then you'll lose it and you can't reapply it. That's everything for the consumables. Now for professions, I'll advise that you take tailoring so you get this head, the epic head that you'll need to do the quest line for. It requires 225 tailoring. It's a really good head, and it also has an on use which reduces mana of all spells by 50% and increases damage and healing by 50 for 12 seconds. So this is the biggest item for us. So it's a hard lock that we have tailoring. I would highly recommend that you have it. For the second profession, the best is if you go enchanting for the sigil, which gives 20 spell damage and healing for 30 minutes. This can only be applied out of combat. It lasts 30 minutes, so once it expires you can add a new one. So similar to a world buff, if you die then you'll lose it and you can't reapply it. Another option is alchemy instead of enchanting. You could take this. It's not quite as good as enchanting, but you do get a potion which restores health and mana. It requires 225 alchemy, but it also increases damage done by spells by 35 for 20 seconds. So it's a very good on-use ability. From engineering, we can get this belt. It's not quite as good as it was originally, but it does give 9 stamina, 1% crit and 1% hit. Now the on-use is that you flip a coin and there's a 50-50 chance you'll either get 3% crit for 30 seconds or get 10% movement speed. Now the problem with this is 1, it's a 15-minute cooldown, and 2, originally it would look like we were going to use this because it had 10% crit Now it has 3% crit. It's not quite as good. Now you do have these radiation bombs that you can use, which inflicts 150 to 250 damage, plus an additional 25 nature damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds, and reduces the movement speed of the target. So it's pretty good for PvP, and it's a pretty good option. If you do like PvP, then you can go for engineering. So those are sort of the 4 options I would recommend. So either go tailoring and enchanting, tailoring and engineering, or tailoring and alchemy. Okay, now we're going to talk about the rotation. So for the rotation, I'm using this example on Warcraft logs. This was from a recent fight against a crowd pummeler. It's a 99 Parse, so it's a good example to use. So what we did first, what you'll do first, everyone will do except for the first boss, obviously you can't really do it, is to pre-cast Pyroblast. If you can do it, do it. If you can't, don't worry too much. In the scheme of things, it's not that important. Then out of there, we want to use our Living Bomb. So the Living Bomb we're going to keep up at all times. We're going to let it explode, and then we're going to reapply it. So don't reapply it until it's exploded, but we want to keep this up as much as possible. There's a weak aura we can use, and I'll cover that later on in the add-ons. So we want a Living Bomb, then we want to get our 5 Scorch stacks. From here I got a Hot Streak, but I kept the stacks up to get 5 Scorches. Use the Living Flame, then I used my Hot Streak proc. Now at this point I'm casting Combustion. So when I use Combustion with my helmet, that's when we use Fireball. So basically, just make it a little bit more simple. Precast Pyro, put Living Bomb up, then use Scorch. Use Scorch until you get Hot Streak procs, and then use Pyroblast. With one exception is when you use Combustion. When you use Combustion, you stop using Scorch and you use a Fireball instead. So when you pop Combustion, you Fireball, 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 using your Hot Streak procs as they come. Now there's a way to track the hot streaks as well, but we'll cover that in the add-on section. Once the Combustion is finished, we'll go back to Scorching. We want to use Living Bomb again as usual. Then we'll use our Hot Streak procs on Pyros as they occur. So I'll tell you one last time. We're going to precast Pyroblast, then we're going to use Living Bomb, then we're going to use 5 Scorches to get the debuff up, then we're going to use Living Flame, and then we're going to use our Hot Streak procs whenever they occur. We're going to pop Combustion and cast Fireballs during Combustion using our Hot Streak procs when they come up. Then we're just going to Scorch, and you just spam Scorch and keep Living Bomb up and use Combustion procs. That's it. When's the best time to mana potion or anything like that is towards the start. In this one, I wasn't really feeling like I was going to run out of mana, but then towards the end I noticed, oh, I am really low, so I just ended up using it anyway, just to finish off the boss. But if you can use it earlier the better. If you know it's going to be a long fight, use your mana potion earlier. And that's it for the rotation. If there's any questions, just write them in the comments below, and I'll respond to them as soon as I can. Now we're going to talk about add-ons. Obviously, I use the basic UI as much as possible. So a lot of the add-ons I've got are for quality of life. But specifically for raiding, I'd recommend you get Deadly Boss mods. For each raid, it will show you things that you need to look out for, all the mechanics, etc. I use big debuffs. I use Character Stats Classic. So what this does is it shows you all your character stats here, so you can look at your spell damage, your hit chance, etc. That's not in the standard game, so that's added on there. Also use Nova World buffs and Nova Instance Tracker. This just shows what layer you're in and where the world buffs and when the cooldown is and when Ashenvale event is up and stuff like that, so it's a very useful add-on. Recount is what I use for damage, but you can also use details. Details is very good, but it kept bugging for me. But two of the most important add-ons I would say out of my list is one is called Stat Weights Classic Vanilla. This shows all of this information on each spell. It provides a number on how valuable they are, how much it costs, how much I can cast till I run out of mana, the expected damage, DPS, etc. It's very good for testing, and when I'm theory crafting builds, I like to look at the information on here, show how much damage I can do. The other one is Weak Auras. Weak Auras is essential. You should have it already, but assuming you don't, get Weak Auras right now. There's so many good things you can get. Now the Weak Auras I use, obviously I've got the BFD raiding kit. I don't need that anymore. I use this Hot Streak one, Devox's Hot Streak. You can see the URL there, but just look up Devox's Hot Streak. You'll need to download this texture to add to your Weak Auras, but then it will pop up when you have a hot streak. It's really useful for me. We've got the Gnomer raiding pack from Foji. This is very, very good. You'll need the anchor with it and the add-on, but if you can get hold of this, then get hold of this. I also use Keyvan's SoD Beacon, Living Flame and Living Bomb add-on. So what this does is it shows me if Living Flame is resisted, and it will go, oh no! It will show me if I'm arcane, how long the beacon has got. It will show me how long the Living Bomb duration is, which is the main thing I use it for. And it will also show the duration of Living Flame. For PvP, I have the PvP Killing Blows. It's very cool. It makes a gunshot when you kill someone. Peggle is absolutely essential. Every raider must have Peggle, because then you can play Peggle and you can have a lot of fun, and you can challenge your friends, and you can also do Peggle loot. If you get good at Peggle, that's how we should do the loot. Now that's everything that you need to know to pass high as a Fire Mage. If you've got this far, I just want to say thank you so much. Consider becoming a member or a subscriber. It will really support me. Also, check out for my live streams in Gnomer. You can learn some things and ask me any questions you want. We have a real laugh whenever I go live, so check me out on there. Otherwise, thank you very much and have a good day.